appreciate you taking time over this weekend, and that two evenings, to join this course. I'm really happy that I've been associated with TWT, as Puneet mentioned. It's always a pleasure, talking to people here on this forum and sharing and learning as well. So I'm expecting, and I'm really wishing to see that I can share whatever I understand. Also, I'm also looking forward to learn from your experience as well. So I'll try to make sure that we have some sessions, or at some point we basically make it more interactive so that you can actually share your experience as well. I definitely want to understand what you're looking at, because as Puneet mentioned, we are putting together a full-fledged, course, and we really want to understand what is it that you're looking out of it, and maybe if you've already covered it, and if not, then your feedback, your those suggestions, your recommendations would help us, include those details as well in the curriculum. Having said that, so Puneet and I mean, here's a precursor, and it's an interesting story. So Puneet and I, we were talking about how we can, there's a lot happening in the AI domain. I mean, I personally have been working on certain things, and my team is contributing to, my team is also working on certain things. I've been interacting with a lot of people, you know, uh, both within India and outside of India. And during those conversations, during that research, I've realized that there's a lot happening out there, and technical communication is not. I mean, it even actually. Uh, I would actually say AI is continuing to penetrate into technical communication and a lot more faster. So it is really, I feel like it's really important that we have an understanding of what are those areas where AI is currently, working or currently getting into technical communication. Also, how is it that we as technical communicators, prepare ourselves and upskill ourselves to be, to basically ensure that we contribute in this new era. And, I know someone who basically mentioned that these are the most interesting times to be in. This is a time when you're actually seeing a transition happening. And I must tell you that, if you basically become a part of this transition, there's a lot that you can learn. There's a lot that you can carry when this transition basically gets to its, to a point where it starts maturing. It's not there. There's a lot of experimentation going on. There's a lot of new things that are coming in market. There's a lot of hype, let's call it that way. But eventually this will all settle down, and there's probably going to be certain areas where things will become much more mature, and we really don't want to be waiting for that time, and then probably miss the bus. So let's go ahead, let's start educating ourselves. And that has been the motto of TWT. So when Puneet and I, we were discussing it, and I said, why not? Let's go ahead, let's put things together, let's talk to the community and see how we can help them. And in return, what we can actually learn. So it's going to be, it's going to be like a dual, uh, I would actually say it's going to be like give and take. It's going to be more of like not just me passing on my learning, but I'm also looking forward to understand from you as to like, what are you learning? And, what would be the best thing to do? I think let's start with your chat, right? So please go to the meeting chat window and quickly tell me what is that one, AI tool that you're using today that you are that you kind of like you're comfortable about it, and you think that you basically are, you are basically enjoying that whole AI era, I mean, that we're going through. What is it that you're using today? So I'm seeing that someone said Gemini Pro, Cursor, of course, awesome. Gemini, Cursor, Chat GPT, that's a good entry. Awesome. Thank you. Claude, okay, that's awesome. Augment, uh-huh. That's interesting. Okay. So yeah, awesome. Go on. Oh, this is cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting to see a new term here. So this is interesting. Thank you for participating, and thank you for letting me know often use Claude Opus model for drafting, which is great. I would really want to know where exactly do you use it? Are you using it as a part of Claude AI or as a part of Cursor, IDE? I mean, there are different ways of using it. So I'm really interested to know, Ronak, how you use Claude Opus. Claude Code, which is again interesting. Balasubramaniam, thank you for sharing that. Use AI. Is that I mean, is the US capital, is that intentional, Raghavendra? This is a new term, definitely. HiGen, awesome for product demo videos. Yes, I use HiGen. I love it. Their latest version is fabulous. I think they've moved on to 4. Their avatars are really cool. So yeah, HiGen is good. Uh, ChatGPT to a little extent, yes. Yes. I mean, most of us either we use iPhone or Android. I mean, let's move to Android. I think Gemini has already penetrated into that domain, right? I mean, that little box is now so very powerful. It can do lot many more things, right? So I'm looking at, a company where they're integrating, they're collaborating with Google, and then Gemini has become more like a de facto, within these devices. IBM Bob, which is really cool. I'm not sure if IBM Bob is actually an external tool. I don't think I get to use that. I've heard about it. Kimi 2.6, that's awesome. Gamma for the slide deck, yes. Gamma, but then I have my own preferences. We'll actually talk about, we'll actually talk about it. Okay, thank you for sharing the link. I definitely, this is a learning moment. That's what I say, right? So I've now learned there is use.ai. This I have not used or they have not actually interfaced with. So I'll continue. I'll definitely go ahead and look into it. OpenClaw, awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as you can actually see here, there is a pattern, right? I mean, as you're responding, there's a lot of these tools that are common, that we continue to use. Thank you for your participation here. But let's move on to the session real quick. So today, what we're going to do here is we put together, as Puneet mentioned, we've actually put together this, a structured, impactful 4-hour workshop. And the idea here is to basically provide you foundational AI knowledge so that you can apply that knowledge and then probably go ahead and, do some hands-on experimentation or hands-on work and use the tool. These 4 hours are divided into 2 hours each, as you're aware. So we will be spending 2 hours today, and then another 2 hours tomorrow. So what is happening during these 2 hours, right? So let's talk about this workshop today. So this workshop is specifically designed for technical communicators. I'm not sure how many of you are from technical communication, or if there's anyone who is not a technical communicator here. I mean, if you could just mention or raise your hand so that I can actually see. Um, okay, I think all of you are. I don't see a hand here. So that basically tells me that all of you are into technical communication one way or other, which is awesome. Now, technical communication does not just, I would not restrict it only to technical writing. I would also include that to be content writing and any form of writing, which basically, and today, technology is just around everything and anything, so right. So I would say if you are contributing to any form of writing, any form of designing, which also includes writing, like you do UX designing, but you also need to make sure that the verbiage, the UX makes understand, it makes sense. So you basically use better tooltips and that stuff. So any form of writing, you should be beneficial. You should find this course helpful, this workshop helpful. I'm sorry. Um, Now, there are a couple of things that I've been thinking about while I was working on this workshop. One is I I want to bypass the generic AI hype completely, right? So, whatever I would be sharing today, or whatever you guys will be sharing today, would be mostly focused on real world content lifecycle tasks, right? So we'll basically be keeping it more towards real world situations, whatever we go through day in and day out, so that you can actually relate with this workshop as well. You'll also, during this workshop, will learn about how to architect prompts. I'll be sharing, an HTML link with you. I remember I shared it with, with some of you, maybe in one of my previous CWT session, I did share it. So I'm going to share that, which will help you, architect better prompts. We will not get into a lot of prompting today. I mean, those are like the very basics of AI, and I really want to just touch base and then move on, because there's a lot that we need to cover. Um, and then we will also be looking at how can we actually map your task, your day, your day-to-day professional tasks to appropriate AI tools. Like, what are those tools available? How what tools exactly can help you with your technical communication challenges or day-to-day tasks, right? So that's exactly what we'll be focusing on. And as Raghavendra pointed me out to use AI, I'm pretty sure there are many other details that I might not be aware of. So, and I'll be more than happy, more than I'll be glad to basically learn from you guys as well. So don't restrict yourself from just listening, but also participate. Ask questions in chat. I have the chat right in front of me. So and when I actually get an opportunity, I'll either get back to you, or if that's relevant, then I can definitely talk about your query in the chat. Okay, let's begin. It's already 5:49, so let's get started. Today, we will be talking about AI foundations, and tomorrow we will look about applied workflows. Now, I will be doing a little bit of, labs and, some bit of, exercise, very, very, very minor exercises, because I want to keep it more periodic, more, basic, more foundation, and that's needed and that's required, because unless you understand the foundation, it's a bit difficult for you to basically apply certain things. So we'll be looking at terms, we'll be looking at what is going on within AI, how you and I as a technical communicator can leverage it, which areas this is going to impact, and how we can better prepare ourselves. Let's face the fact, right? We have to be prepared for what's coming up. Okay, so let me start sharing my screen, and one of you can just give me a thumbs up, or just let me know if you can see my desktop. Okay, thank you, Anubhav. Appreciate it. You raised your hand. Hope that was just a thumbs up, or you have a question or a query. Okay, I think that's a thumbs up. So thank you. Okay, so let's quickly get started. It's a session for 2 hours. We've already consumed some time, and then I'll try to keep it interactive. I'll try to basically ask questions and expect your response. So be ready with that. And then I've divided the workshop for today into 5 sections. So we'll move on to these sections. So first, 40 minutes or so, we'll be talking about the basics. Then we will move into the content life cycle, the risks, that are associated. And finally, we'll look into a couple of exercises. I also have a reflection. I'll also want to spend some time on brainstorming and, gathering certain reflections at the end. And there is going to be some homework. Okay. And yeah, don't worry, it's not going to be a lot. You can still spend time with your family, but I really want you to come prepared for tomorrow's session, so that we can make the best use of it. Before I move further, any questions? I can actually take 2 questions in the interest of time. Um, any questions? Okay. Okay, great. So let's move on. Okay, so the very first thing before we even actually get into any of these AI related tools, Claudes and cursors and chat GPTs and copilots and whatnot, we need to basically understand the core metaphor, right? And what is the core of everything that basically powers all these tools, all these utilities. And I'm pretty sure you must have you might know about this. And if not, this is a moment that I really want you to pay attention to, because this is how it all starts. This is the base, this is the foundation, and the foundation is the large language models, or the LLMs. Now, these models are basically pattern recognition engines, nothing more. They are algorithms, right? They are trained to recognize patterns. More and more data goes in, more and more patterns are recognized, more and more, it starts understanding, that data pretty well. So, true data goes in, the pattern recognition engine works on it, the algorithm works on it, and then it starts, creating idea, or, creating information. So these models are trained on trillions of words, and lot more, uh, maybe a lot more than trillions now. And this is not just restricted to text that you and I type in agents today. These models now can access books, articles, codes, websites. They literally are penetrated into pretty much everything and anything that's available online today. Um, I would request people to go on mute unless you have a question. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay, through this training, what is happening here? So this is all about statistics. It's all about AI, and what we call machine language that we have been listening. That I remember studying way back in 2000s. So this is not new. This has been there. Statistics has been long. AI ML has been long. But what has happened is we've now cracked the code. We now understand. We now have algorithms that can basically do this pattern recognition much easily, and that's how various companies are working with their own patented models that can do this pattern recognition now. Um, so what happens here is simple. You give an input and say, hey, you know what, draft a release notes for this API. That's it. I mean, it's a very natural language query. This is exactly what you would do. Now, there is no code that you need to remember. There is no command you need to remember. There is no syntax that you need to remember, no parameters, nothing. I mean, that was like very old times when you had to interact with machines. You need to know which command to use, which parameters to use, how to use them. You don't use them properly, you render an error, square brackets, flower brackets, whatnot stuff. It still happens, but it happens in the background. You really don't have to think about those anymore. What you need to do is provide a natural language query in very simple language, the language, let's say English right now, for ease of understanding. Well, of course, these agents have now become much clever. They even understand regional languages, but that's a different story. So you give an input, very simple statement. What happens is this input goes to a neural network where they're like huge data servers, that are working, that are basically, looking at your query. And then these neural networks process your input, and based on the recognition pattern, the training that these models have already got, whether it's remote or local, whichever, you get an output which is mostly continuation. It basically is an understanding. Okay, so what you get here is in markdown, which is what these LLMs usually are good at, giving you an output. Like, though even though it doesn't appear, because they're clever, they give you an stable view, but the background is either JSON or a markdown result. So they basically give that result in markdown, and it starts rendering on your agent. Now, you might have already observed that when you give the same query, again, the output is not the same, even though your prompt is same, right? So basically, every time you give the same prompt, your query, your output continues to either become better or worse, depending on what model you're using, what probabilities are working in the background, what's going on. So basically, you have to understand that whatever you do with these agents, however good they are, they cannot understand the language the way humans do. They recognize patterns, right? And that too at a massive scale. So So basically, even though we would like to leverage, I mean, most companies want you to use, tools, get your work done faster. This can only happen in areas where things are more, you know, pattern format. They are more streamlined. They're templatized. But the minute you basically start, you basically expect that why is it not actually able to give me something which is human friendly, or what about it? Why is it not putting thought process into it? Well, that's not its job. It's not a human. That's where you come into picture. And therefore, I keep telling everybody that human review cannot be compromised. It is a non-negotiable thing. And that's where we as technical communicators come into picture. We know language. We understand language because we are humans, of course. We have been learning, we have been practicing this language. We have emotions. We can go and talk. We can think in different dimensions, and then go and talk to people. We gather more information. Models cannot do that. They're trying, but they still don't have that ability. So human reviews are non-negotiable. That basically means that if you continue to use these models, you continue to train yourself as to how these models work, what they do in the background, you will always have an upper hand. Okay. So remember, you're not going out anywhere anytime soon. Never. Unless you basically take the step and says, okay, if it's cursors and cloths, that's fine. They can do this, but I can do much better than them. I understand what is the output like. They can generate drafts. They can do a very good job of putting things together logically, but at the end of the day, they might actually not do or give you something that is like really worthy enough to share with your customers. You will have to basically put in some time to review, because there are certain things that it will do. We will come to those terms as well. So what does it do? Right. So let's talk about 8 concepts that you as technical writer should know, and you must know this. What are these concepts? One is token. This is a new language. You must have heard, oh my gosh, Claude is consuming so many tokens, or hey, Cursor is actually taking in half of my tokens. Again, tokens are, uh, imagine what happened when the mobile phones came into market. Imagine those days. I mean, I've been there when those big bulky telephone sets, which actually had a dial or a number pad, or like replaced with mobile phones which actually had buttons on them. And to be able to use mobile phones, you had to pay both for incoming and for outgoing. And that's exactly the situation with the AI tools today, with these LLMs today, right? So you basically pay them in terms of tokens, and these tokens are approximately three-fourths of a word. So imagine if your sentence has like 20 words or 30 words, then the token consumption, give or take, would actually be three-fourths of the total number of words. And again, every model has a completely different token subscription or a charge. So you need to be very careful about which model you're using and for what work you're using those models for. We'll come to that in a minute, but token is one word that you should definitely remember. And remember, the tokens cost both for incoming and for outgoing. So that basically means, a model will charge you for any input that you put in. A model will also charge you for all the output that it is giving. So if you're thinking that, hey, I'm seeing these paragraphs and paragraphs of information, which is good reference material, well, boy, you need to basically do something about it. You really don't want to see those paragraphs coming out of your query, because all those paragraphs, all that huge amount of information is also charged, and you might run out of your tokens really fast. The second one is the context window, right? So a context window is usually the maximum amount of text the model can see or reason at once, right? So every model has a certain specific limitation, right? I mean, let us say you throw 2 paragraphs to a model, it would be able to read it. 3 paragraphs, and it starts giving you errors. It would just not process it really well. 4, it just simply says, no, this is beyond 20,000 characters, and I just can't read it. So that basically means that you have reached the context window of that model. Now, Claude, I mean, at this point in time, Claude is the one which can take up to 200,000, maximum tokens, which is approximately 500 pages. That's really huge. I mean, and it definitely can take a lot of load. But again, remember, to that load, it's also, going to charge you to that extent as well. So be careful with what model you're using when you're actually using Claude. Then you might have also heard about something called as hallucination. It's as important word as token. Let's put it that way. Hallucination is when, a model comes up and it says, you know what, this is correct, this is right, go ahead. And this has happened a couple of times, right? I mean, so I basically gave it a spec and then try to see if you can actually, help me with an API doc. And the model is so confident that it's actually telling me that I can do this, using this API, but in reality you just cannot. And that's where, that's what we call it, hallucination, right? So some models are really good at hallucinating, and this is one of the limitations that the most models are actually trying to overcome, right? I mean, every coin has two sides, right? So hallucination is something, the more model hallucinates, the I would actually say stay away from it. Because it seems to show you that confidence that, hey, you know what, even though it's wrong, unless you go and tell, I don't think this is possible. And the next thing that the model says, you're right. You're right. Let me go ahead and do something. Right. So for a model, you're always right, even though you actually go ahead and even give it the wrong information. So you can confuse a model, but many a times a model can confuse you with its responses. So be very careful with what information you take in from the model. Read it once, twice, thrice. If it is technical, be very careful with what information is being generated using versions, because it definitely hallucinates. Even though this hallucination has started going down, but models do hallucinate. Many times you see this hallucination happening when you actually give a lot of data to those models. Like you're just dumping four paragraphs and then you say, okay, get me a summary or something. Well, there you go. It starts hallucinating. Or let us say you gave 30 Jira tickets at the same time. Well, you just gave it, good food for hallucination, right? Unless you basically chunk that information into smaller segments, you will end up, seeing hallucination. The fourth term that you also need to remember, and every model, gives you this. I'm not sure if you're actually doing this, is you can set the temperature, okay, of every model. Now, temperature basically means that, what kind of information do you really want when you're giving a query, right? I mean, it's more of like, if you want creative information, right, you would basically increase the temperature. The lower the temperature, that means the document is technical. So it will basically go into a lot of technology. I mean, it will work on the technical accuracy. The higher the temperature, it is more about brainstorming content ideas. So it will basically be like, oh, you think we should actually do this? It's more like, okay, how do I plan for a birthday party? Now that's creative. That's like more content idea. You just gave it a very open, canvas. And you wanted to basically explore the horizons, different ideas. So what you would do is you would increase the temperature in your model, and therefore it can actually go and give you a variety of responses. Again, this will also impact your token and hallucination, but that's a different story. If you are giving it a technical document that has APIs or release notes or user guides, I would strongly recommend you to reduce the temperature. So if the temperature is 3, reduce it to 1, because we really want it to focus on that information. We don't want it to basically go and explore a lot of creative ideas on that technical data, unless you want it to explore. So that's temperature, and we'll see that in a minute. Then you need to also look into the term called grounding. Now, this is basically a technique which is relevant to hallucination, right? So, so basically, what you're doing here is you are providing it, with like your source material. It could be a document, it could be an image, it could be a screen capture, it could be a link to a web, page. Basically, what you're trying to do here is you are trying to narrow down the context, and then you're basically giving it some grounding ideas. This grounding or adding source nodes or adding the source references basically prevents hallucination, and that's what grounding is, right? So you might actually hear and says, oh, you know what, you should actually do some grounding on your model or on your query, and I'm sure that you will actually get better results. And you'll be wondering, wait, what should I do with grounding? What is grounding like? It's basically like someone telling you in the AI terms that, hey, you know what, go ahead and give it a screenshot, go ahead and give it some reference material so that it knows what it needs to do, and your results are more fine-tuned to that. The next term that you will come across is RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And it's more like, you know, you are giving a lot of training material, or you basically are, you basically have a collection, right, where you want it to do. So this is a model that you will mostly see in Notebook LM, right? So when you go to Notebook LM, I'm not sure how many of you are. We'll actually go through that in a minute. And Notebook LM basically works on notebook, or RAG model, where what you do is you upload all the data, and then you ask the model to give you either a slide deck, a video, an audio. So that way, you basically are not giving it an open-ended question. You basically are telling these are the 10 things I want you to go to, and then generate a video based on these 10 things, or two things out of those 10 things, right? So that's a RAG model. A RAG model is more like a collection. You might actually hear this term mostly when you have a local LLM that you've installed on your PC and you're using it, because a local LLM basically saves all your data locally, and then it uses that data to run. So when you actually have a chat, it first goes to that data, looks into that data, and then gives you a response. So your responses are always limited to that specific collection of information, and that's what RAG is. Then, of course, prompt. I mean, who doesn't know about prompt? That's the instruction that you give to AI. We call it the natural language query. Now they call it prompt. It's like the very first thing that you should actually learn about about how to interact with AI. It's like um, it's like I mean, I'm not a native uh, Telugu speaker, which is a language that is spoken in the state I live, and now they have made it mandatory. So if I have to learn a language, I basically have to learn the script first. I basically then have to learn the words, how to put them together, which is basically what grammar is. It actually tells you what you should be using when you're communicating, or when you're using these words together, how you should be using them, what punctuation is all about, what parts of speech are. So once you have learned all of that, once you actually understand it, you can communicate better with someone who basically knows that language, right? So I can actually go out to a local market and then start having those conversations in local language, because I have learned that local language. I've put in that effort. And if you are planning to use all these tools, whichever tools they are, it's not, I mean, it's good that you're actually giving natural language query, but you also need to know what that query should look like to get your job done much faster. Else you will be stuck in a continuous loop of asking questions, getting answer, asking question, getting answer, and so on, which you can actually avoid in the first place itself. Uh, for all of you here, and I'm actually going to be providing you this link. Maybe I'll actually drop this real quick in the chat so that you guys can bookmark it. I have this tool here that I've created based on my understanding and my learning on what the various prompts are. So there are about I don't know, I mean 18, maybe there are more now, different prompts that you can actually use. There's a chain of thought prompting, and what it actually does is, now I have, I've added persona here, but it basically tells you what is it that you should basically be asking, and when you actually say chain of thought prompting, it's a technique. And then when I actually say generate, okay, so there is this, right? So when you actually say, COT prompting, which is chain of thoughts prompting, you basically give a role. You also tell what the context is, what the task looks like, what is the input that you want to give, and what output you want. And of course, the quality guidelines. You really don't want it to be like wandering. So when you give this prompt, instead of just telling it, explain how each step influences the next, or describe the US design process step by step. Now, most of us do this, right? But it doesn't have a lot of context. So your response would be very generic. But when you do this, your response will be very, very, very focused. So you would basically get better responses rather than just giving one single statement, right? So there are multiple such prompts that you can actually use at different situations that you can actually use, and all of that is documented here. So feel free to go through this whenever you want to, or use this tool whenever you want to, and trust me, you will save a lot of tokens and get your job done faster. And it's a good way of learning how to do prompts, and in no time, in a very short period of time, you will actually start giving prompts in such a way that your results come much faster and better. Great. Finally, the last one is the system prompt. It's basically where, you know, um, this is new, and this is coming from the cursors and the clouds, right? So today, what these cursors and clouds are doing is they have this application, and then they also provide you with an ability to basically set certain rules, set certain, guardrails, right within the ID, within the cursor or the clouds itself, so that every time you give a query, these guardrails actually prevent, that query from, hallucinating or going out of the context, right? This basically helps you in your professional day to day, life. Like I know that whenever I'm actually asking, cursors or clouds, at my workplace, I want it to basically ensure that my response, is related to the company. I have certain terminology that I want it to use when it actually gives me the response. I don't want certain terms to basically be used when it's actually giving me a response. So all of these details, I can provide it as a part of rules or skills, whatever you call it, and then put it, or provide it as a part of configuration within the cursors and plots. And I don't have to worry about those things anymore, because they are already there, and cursors and clouds would always give me a response based on whatever guardrails I've actually set. And that's what system prompt is all about. I can actually take a question at this point in time if you guys have any.
Uh, Aman, just a small clarification.
Uh-huh.
Is temperature and grounding related?
I would actually say they work together, but I mean everything here is related. Let's put it that way, and they all basically help you get a better result. But they're not related, as in like one needs the other. I mean there are different settings that you can actually do to fine tune your result, or basically save or optimize your token consumption.
So if we say the temperature is like zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.9, which leads to more creative results, can we say that it is not grounded on our artifacts?
Well, grounding is more of like when you actually say point 0.8, I mean, let us say in a range of 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, and you are at point 0.8, that basically means your temperature is very low. That basically means that you want, your results to be narrowed down to whatever, information you give it. It's very technical in nature. So again, it depends on what scale, you actually are putting it up. And grounding is basically a way to, give it more information, more relevant information, like pointing it to a website or giving a screen capture, as I mentioned. So temperature is more of like telling it in a direction that don't wander or wander. I give you all the opportunity, but grounding also gives it more reference. Let us put it that way, right? So even when you're wandering, you have a reference, it would still take that as one point reference. Let's say you gave a birthday card image, right? And then you said, the temperature is set to high. So it's now creative. It can actually go and do anything. And it will start giving you results on birthday cards, anniversary cards, marriage cards, and whatnot stuff. But when you reduce that temperature zero and you give a birthday card image, it will start thinking only on birthday card or only on the color or only on that image. So your responses are very, very, very closely tied to whatever grounded information you provide.
Okay, thank you. Uh,
Sure. Okay, so we move on in the interest of time. Now, there's some research that has been done, and again, this has got nothing to do, but I just put it here because to me, numbers don't lie, right? So what has happened here is there been some research happening since 2023. I would actually say since 2020, and it has come out that there's been like, I mean, AI basically can help get your job done 55% faster. If you have a task and AI can actually help you get it 55 times, 55% faster completion rate, then, I mean, it also talks about, I mean, Entropic actually generated that, it can actually roughly take about 200,000, tokens in a Claude context window, which is roughly 500 pages. I've just mentioned that. So this is one a big achievement because I don't think there's any other tool that basically does that today. Then is the hallucination rate, without grounding techniques. So if you don't give any, reference pointers, if you don't basically tell what you're looking at, your hallucination rate is like higher. Right, it can actually wander. It continues to give you something other that you probably might not find helpful. So always make sure that you give some reference, some grounded technique or some reference pointer. And as for technical writers, this is a survey from writer.com, and I found it really interesting. Was like, it was observed that tech writers were able to save 50% of their time on generating the first drafts using AI assistants. Right. And it's true. And it's really true. It actually might have actually even increased now because the tools have become much more clever than 2024. And they're getting clever right every day, every hour we speak. So these are some numbers, and you can actually see that it has now started impacting tech writers. It has now started impacting corporates. Corporates want everybody to use AI to get jobs done faster because now they want more more production, let's call it more releases, more frequent changes to the product, and so that they can give their customers more up to date information, up to date features, whatever you call it. So the release cycle, which used to happen a month, now basically might have moved to a week because we now have tools to get things done. So yeah, I mean, it is getting in pretty faster than I would have anticipated any given day. Anyways, so now we'll move into the four tools that I wanted to bring and talk about. And it's important for us to understand how these tools work. You might have been using it, but let's hear me out. And then tomorrow we might actually be using some of these tools to get certain things done. The first one here is Claude, right? And that's something that I'll be talking about. It basically supports a lot of long form data. It actually has good. In fact, it actually does very good job with coding as well, and governance and style. It definitely has a lot of tools that can help you govern. What your output is going to be like. How you want your output to look like, terminology, taxonomy, and all that stuff. And I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. Then we have Cursor by AnySphere, which is usually it's basically an IDE, unlike Claude. Claude has both. It has a desktop version, it has a cloud version, and then it has a CLI version to it. But Cursor basically comes as a form of an IDE, which is basically based out of the VS Code. It has been developed on top of VS Code, so it's a VS Code fork. And then Cursor basically gives you all these agents in an agentic form. It's more UI based, not CLI. I find it really helpful to use Cursor IDE as something when I'm actually working on API docs. When I actually need an editor, I need the AI agent. I need all the all the excellent plugins that I can actually use in VS Code all together in one single interface without hopping multiple interfaces. So Cursor definitely fits in the development area, Doxers code, Git, multi-file, edit, and all that part, that zone. Then we have GitHub Copilot, which is by GitHub and Microsoft. So the Copilot basically gets attached to all your Microsoft tools. It needs a Microsoft 365 subscription. Once you have it, all your tools start showing you Copilot, which is an agentic interface. GitHub also has Copilot, which is called the GitHub Copilot, and it has very deep GitHub integration. I'm not sure how many of you have used it, but it really saves a ton of time, for developers who have their code on GitHub, who basically do a lot of pull requests, API generation and whatnot stuff. So it basically keeps it actually helps them automate a lot of those processes, which was not possible earlier. And finally, I have Gemini, which I mean, as you all know, is now in on the Androids. It has started putting in a lot of interfaces now, a lot of good work there. I would actually say, as a common man, if I actually have to do something for my kids, I actually have to create a video for them. For students, for someone who's basically just a student, maybe like fourth standard, fifth standard, and you want to introduce AI, I would actually recommend Gemini. That's very it's easy interface. It's much easier to work with Gemini, and yeah. Why ChatGPT and Codex is not there on the list? Because I basically felt that the page was already overwhelming, but no other reason. They all actually, fit in the same place. ChatGPT, definitely ChatGPT and or Codex. Again, Codex is their IDE or interface on top of ChatGPT, which is a cloud version from OpenAI. I don't have any other reason of why not putting it there. You know, it definitely fits in one of these areas for sure. It's just from a different company. No other reason. So no offense there. But yeah, I don't use it a lot. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with ChatGPT, or Codex for that matter of fact. Okay, so let's talk about Claude. I call it the writer's workhouse. Okay, I use it day in and day out. And if you ask me, I would strongly recommend it. Yes, it's costly. Let me put that as a disclaimer. I'm sorry if there's anyone from Claude here who's listening or might listen. Sorry about that, but I find it a bit costly. There's a free version to it, but that doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't fit into my requirements. You basically tend to lose those tokens really fast. There are three models that are quite prevalent today. I strongly recommend Haiku, whatever version, forget about the version number. But Haiku basically is a model that consumes a lot less tokens. It's cheaper. It gets your job done much faster. You would basically use Haiku when you're not doing a lot of technical stuff. It does fabulous good job of grammar, language and all that stuff. But the minute you basically want, to get into a little bit of technology, get into a little bit of style and whatnot stuff, you probably want to bring a little bit complexity. Sonnet works really well. It's more balanced, and then again, your token consumptions goes higher. And Opus, of course, is for the deep, if you're basically working on a lot of complex data, APIs, and nuanced review and so on. Opus, remember, it consumes the most tokens, and you might run out of your tokens really faster. So Claude basically comes, as I mentioned to you, it comes in three different interfaces: web, CLI, and API. We will be actually, I'll try to see if we can actually use the web version. I already have it open here. This is how Claude AI looks like on the web. And let's see, where is my terminal now? Okay, yeah. Okay, so okay, and wait, hold on. Oops, sorry. I need to basically do it the other way. Okay, why can't I share? Hmm. Sorry about that. I think I cannot share. Why? Okay, I'll probably come to this. So I'll come to the CLI version in a minute or two. I don't think I'm able to actually bring that on my desktop right now. Um, yeah, I mean, okay, Claude over CLI. Yeah, I mean, you can, but CLI does a lot more. I mean, it does things much more faster, and there are certain reasons to it, right? So the reasons are, I'll come to in a minute, is that I'm able to actually configure a lot of MCPs and get a lot of my job done much faster when I use CLI, rather than the AI interface, where I it is really hard for me to basically configure it with the MCP servers and get my job done. And with MCP, I mean to say, I can with one language, with a very one simple prompt, I can actually go to Jira to get my tickets, go to GitHub, pull my PRs, go to Confluence, get my data, and also maybe like my Miro boards, and then get all that data together, process it, and then generate something that I want to do with just one single prompt, right? And that's definitely a possibility with the MCP servers, and we will be talking about that in a minute or two as well. Okay, so that's Claude. There are certain things that you should actually know about Claude. Claude also works. I mean, it actually provides you with certain slash commands, and that's how you interact with it. There are a lot of cheat codes and cheat sheets that are available online, which basically tell you how to best use Claude and so on. There's a lot of work happening there. So yeah, I mean, when you are interacting with Claude, and we will interact with Claude, hopefully tomorrow. But in my eight, in the other 8 week session, we would definitely be working on a live project using Claude, and that might actually give you a better understanding of how Claude works and MCP servers and skills and agents and so on. Today, it's just understanding. We move on, and yeah, there you go. See, so Claude, there are three things that you should know about Claude, and I'm not sure how many of you are using it. If you're using it, put a message here in the chat, and I would be really happy, glad. So if you're using Claude skills, or agents or MCP servers or all of them, let me know right in the chat. Now, for those who are not using them and you're just using the Claude interface, let me tell you that skills are is where I see that we come into picture. I've been telling this to my team. I'm telling this to myself, and pretty much every other technical communicator. Now, interestingly, I mean, all of us have been doing writing, right? I mean, we all understand how to write and language and grammar and so on. Let's say I actually put together something, and let's say I want to do awesome VS Code with Cloud API. I do that too, which basically helps me get all the extensions as well. So that's great. But do you use skills, agents, or MCP servers? That was the question. So if you do, then just let me know and just say yes in the chat. Um, so, uh, so what are skills? Skills are basically like templates. They are basically reusable commands that you can create. So Code gives some commands, but let us say you want to write your own command. Say you want to generate release notes. And where do you want to generate release notes, right? So let us say your org has xyz.jira.com, which is where all your Jira commands are. Then your org has an enterprise Git, where all the PRs are saved or the code is available, and then you write your, let's say you write your source code in data or Markdown, whichever language. I mean, I really don't care about languages now. I know really don't care about extensions anymore, because it's the content that matters these days now. It's not data or Markdown or RST. Those days are gone. Excellent. Thank you, Balasubramaniam. I would really want to be interested maybe at some point, if you have some bandwidth today, I really want to see how you use skills with commands. Um, so there are these skills that you can actually create, where you can actually instruct Claude with just one single slash command to do everything that I just mentioned, right? Pick up the Jira tickets, with a simple Jira query. Just say, ask this Jira query. And once the Jira query is provided, go fetch all the tickets, slash them into smaller segments, process them, see if there are any GitHub PRs, pull those GitHub PRs, process all this data, then see if there's a Confluence page link inside your Jira ticket, pull that data as well, see if there are images, pull that images, put them all in one folder, process them, give me your release notes, right? Now, if you had to do this, imagine the amount of work that you'll actually have to do. But with just one slash command, you're able to generate one draft, ensuring that everything is being processed, right? So that's the power of a skill. Skills are basically three types. You can actually have a global skill, which basically runs on pretty much like you can basically put that skill in the cloud configuration, and anytime, from any folder wherever you want, you can actually run that skill. Then there are project specific skills that you really want to be used only within that project. And finally, there are user specific skills that only certain users can actually use, so you can even control the skills at the user level. So those are skills. We will see how to create a skill. Hopefully, I'm not sure it's a part of this session, but in a bigger session, we'll definitely be looking at it. Then we have agents. So what is an agent? An agent would basically execute multi-steps, right? So let us say you have one skill, but you basically want, you know, five or six skills together to get the thing done. One is like, okay, generate draft, then, process it or push it back into Confluence. Three is like run a publishing pipeline. Four, publish it on something. I'm just making things up right now. So you can basically, as I said, right, you can actually use an agent to combine these commands together, skills together, and then you can, perform all the actions together. And this is exactly what is happening today on your mobile phone, right? I mean, when you actually open Gemini or your mobile phone, and then you say, hey, I'm not sure how many of you have tried it, but, if you actually say, book an Uber to airport, what it does is it actually it actually launches Uber application. Then it also identifies which city you are in. It also goes in and find out which airport that you should be going, and it knows exact location because you've already enabled the location in your mobile phone. So it actually tells you what is the path and how much amount it'll actually cost you, and then it'll stop there and it'll actually ask you, these are the options, do you want me to book this, right? How is that happening? So there are multiple things that are happening here, and that's basically the agentic way of doing things. And finally, if you really want to do a much more complex work, like you have different tools, like you want to read pages from Confluence, you want to read pages from GitHub, you want to read tickets from Jira, you want to access some local files, you want to do some web search. You also want to go to your Slack or Teams chat on a specific thread and then pull that data, or you want to access certain databases. Let us say if you want to do all of it, you can create a skill, but then that's not going to be possible. And for that, all of these various entities have MCP servers that they have provided an open market. So you can just go and search for Confluence MCP server. I think it's called Atlassian Rovo. Then you have a GitHub MCP server and then Jira. So you can configure your Claude for all these MCP servers. And then when you actually, provide an instruction, what happens is that instruction will pass that data to the Confluence MCP server. The Confluence MCP server will process it all, pass it on back to your Claude interface. Then it moves on to GitHub. Sometimes it even actually does all of this parallelly, and finally you get the data. So how cool is that, right? I mean, imagine back just 1 year, ago, I was talking about automations on how to automate this using Python or other scripting languages. Now I really don't have to. I just have to install MCP servers and get my job done. More about this in a longer session. You can. I also have an article that I've written on MCP server sometime back. It's on LinkedIn. I'll share that link maybe sometime tomorrow. But yes, MCP servers, consider them as the USB-C port for all your jobs done. No longer. So now you don't really have to be a programmer, right, to get things done. What you just need is, okay, what you should be doing, what is the logical order, write it properly, and then let the MCPs and your write app do the job. So Claudes and cursors can take it from there. Um, the next one, again, I mean, this is how it actually works, right? So this is a diagrammatic or a pictorial reference, pictorial way of what I was actually talking about, right? So Claude or Cursor or any other, let us say any other client here basically passes information to MCP protocol layer, which in turn will basically pass it on to whichever MCP that you have installed and get your job done. Period. So at the end of the day, you just get the output. You really don't care where that information is anymore, or you don't have to provide that information manually. Let's move on to Cursor. Any question on Claude before I move on to Cursor? One question, maybe. Oh, and you can actually type your question in the chat. I have the chat right in front of me, and I can answer your question during while I'm actually talking, or I can specifically answer your question. Even if it is not relevant. Okay. Okay. So hopefully, I get to see more questions in the chat. Because if I'm not I'm just trying to basically understand if this is all making sense to you all, or if this is not, or if there's anything else that you were really looking forward to that I can, if I'm not included it, maybe I can actually include it in tomorrow's session, and so on. So your feedback, your interaction is also very important. What's the subscription suggestion for personal use? Um, I would probably, oh, for Claude. Okay. Okay. If you ask me, then I usually have a personal subscription, and I usually take like $25 at least subscription, which basically ends up to $30 because there is a tax on top of it. It is definitely costly, but at times when I need it, I need it. That's what I do. But again, I mean, of course, you can look into what your budget is. It starts from $5, if I'm not wrong, and then you can go beyond that. Would it be possible how to connect to MCP servers? You know what? That was an interesting question, which basically takes a good amount of time, Srimati. I'll actually see if I can actually bring this up tomorrow when I'm doing something live. I can actually show you how to connect to an MCP server for sure. Vijay Kumar, do you have a question? Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you. This is good. Please. Okay, this is good. Please let your questions coming up.
Yeah, hi
User,
Aman.
yes.
Tamanna this side. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
So I just want to ask, you have written cursor is best for Docker code. So can we use any of the Claude for Docker code?
Oh yeah, you can. You definitely can use it, but with Claude, it depends on where you've actually installed it, right? I mean, if you've actually installed it as a part of VS Code, then yeah, you can use it because at Docs and Code, you need the editor. You need to have all the files open. It
Yes.
it it kind of like makes it easier when you have the agentic interface, when you have all the other interfaces as well. Open right in the same interface. You don't want to be hopping around in different interfaces, right? Because you will be working with Postman, Swagger, and whatnot stuff. So having it all in one single interface really helps. But if you
So
have
with
Claude
the
Code,
yeah,
yes,
with the skills commands, can we use it? Like you
skills.
have explained for the release notes. So if a release notes can be created with the developer end, or maybe document can also be created with the developer end.
Yes, yes, it can be created. So when it actually comes to creation of document, you can definitely use any of these tools depending on what is allowed, right? So some companies basically give you Claude, and of course you can use it. I mean, you can do anything with these tools that I'm actually talking about, even Codex or Open ChatGPT, but they all have when they started, they basically started with an objective or a purpose, right? And that's exactly what I'm capturing here. But yes, they
Yeah.
can do more. They definitely can do more.
Okay. Thank you so
Good,
much.
good question, Tamana. Thank you. Okay, so Cursor, again, it's an AI native, editor, as I mentioned to you. There's a tab, there's command, keystrokes that you can use. And so I was talking about the cursor rules file, right? So cursor rules file is an interesting concept. I don't think we have that in Claude today. We don't have rules in Claude. We have them in cursor. So cursor rules basically tells you, it's a markdown file. Again, you see all of these are markdown files. The only difference is that you don't have a .md extension here. It's a dot cursor rules. That's what the file name is. And the way you write it is markdown language, right? So you're basically writing it in very simple language, and the symbol is you're writing Autodesk, technical docs or X technical docs. Now, what are the rules, right? So I want all the headings to be verb headings, not configure and not configuration or something like that. No passive voice, 20 words per sentence, and don't sound very thrilled or excited, or say make a request and not hit, or you can probably add more grammar or more rules to it. The idea with cursor rules is that you can actually control the writing, your output, which you don't want to basically works out as a validation tool. And then it applies on pretty much everything that comes out of cursor, right? So you really don't have to worry about if you're in a corporate world, you can create one cursor rule file and then pass it on to your whole team, and the output basically that comes out is consistent. It will always adhere to your corporate style guides, right? So that's what cursor rule is all about, which is a very interesting feature. And I'm actually trying to there are a lot many features, but for this workshop, I've tried to put features that are relevant to technical communicators. So if you know of a feature that you've been using, which is relevant to technical communication, please put it in the chat so that you'll share it. And if I don't know about it, that would be like an aha moment for me. So please help me with learning as well. Um, Go to Copilot again. It's a code to docs bridge. It works fabulously well on GitHub. Now, Outlook 365 has an integration which helps you create agents. You can actually create your own agents and do your own stuff. And that's the off Microsoft Office Copilot. We also have GitHub Copilot if in case you're working on a developer docs and your code is mostly on GitHub. The GitHub Copilot basically does wonders when it comes to working with your workspace or working with your GitHub issues, PRs or codes, and as well as get a shell command terminal right then and there to get your other deploy or build scripts working as well. So you can actually do a lot of automation using GitHub Copilot inside GitHub today. So that's like really one area. If in case you have your source code on GitHub, you should actually be exploring GitHub Copilot too. So this rule change the content. How can I know where the changes are made? Well, you know what? If try this. Give a prompt before adding cursor rules and see what data comes out. Add cursor rules and then give the same prompt and see what differences it will make. It won't tell you like before and after, but you will literally see the difference in the response that is generated by cursor after you've actually added rules. And yeah, the rules does change the content too. Yes, it does. That's what it is meant for. It basically adds guardrails to the information. It's a way of like telling this is what I'm looking out in your response. These are the terms that I don't want you to use, and don't sound too excited because this is technical content. Always refer a user as you, not as a user. So when it gives you that details, it always follows those guidelines, follows those rules. So that's what cursor rules is meant for. Finally, let's quickly move on to, because we don't have a lot of time here. We go to Gemini Notebook LM. I use it. My kids use it a lot, and I actually want to. I'm not. Again, I'm not advertising any of these tools. I'm putting them together because as a technical communicator, I use them for different purposes. There are a couple of other tools as well that are out there, and you guys might be using it. But then this is no advertising or marketing of any tools. It's just knowledge sharing, and we want to keep it that way. Gemini has something called as gems, which are specific personas. I'm not sure how many of you have actually tried those. It's really good. It's more like having the way you actually can create agents out of Copilot. You can actually create gems in Gemini. When you actually use Gemini Pro, you can have your own gem, call it release notes generator, have its own command and structure, and then use it. Oh, that's cool, Devin. I'm glad that you're using Gem. Yes, and Notebook LM is definitely good for document summarizing and learning, and especially for students. And I mean, of course, for us as well. When you really want to understand, like, sometimes I have so much of data. that I really want to listen to it when I'm actually driving, or I sometimes I really want to just listen. I don't want to basically read it. And Notebook LM basically gives me a great audio podcast when I actually put in that data. My daughter, she is a ninth standard student, and she finds Notebook LM really really helpful when it comes to her for basically generating slide decks, or basically generating audio podcasts so that she can actually listen to it and then prepare for her, for her assessments or assignments and so on. So I definitely, recommend Notebook LM as well. It is a great research tool if you have all the resources and if you are allowed to use it. Again, remember, do not put in your corporate, information into the open, into these tools unless you are allowed to use them within your corporate domain, right? I mean, you can definitely use them for your personal use, but never use your official data here. Most importantly, never use your financial data in any of these tools unless you've actually got, I mean, never do that unless you are comfortable sharing it with the rest of the world. So be careful with what amount of what data you are sharing or processing, because everything, let's put it that way, everything that you do is logged. Every data that you pass is logged. Every information that is processed is logged. And corporates basically they track that. They don't want models to learn whatever they're doing, so there is a specific agreement between that. Models cannot learn internal data. That's great, but corporates should log it. And when you go to the open or you take a personal subscription, all of data is used for learning. So Claude is learning, Gemini is learning, Cursor is learning, everything that you're processing it. So be very careful when you are using these agents. These are great utilities, but they can also be, I mean, they can be nightmares at some point in time. Um, Okay, so there are a couple other utilities that I have found really helpful. One of them is Grammarly. Again, it also has an AI version now. Atlassian now has an MCP server, so Atlassian Intelligence. We have Perplexity. It is a great research tool. I use it for a lot of research. Uh, we have Mentlify again, which is an AI-powered documentation platform. It does wonders with developer documentation. We have Otter AI. It can transcribe a lot of SME calls. I mean, unless you are allowed to basically, process that data corporately, or if you basically take notes on a personal front as well, you've just been taking random notes and you really want to feed that and then make sense out of it, Otter really works out. DAL-E and Firefly, they generate beautiful, illustrations. I somehow prefer Notebook LM and Nano Banana. Of course, Gemini does fabulous good job of it. Notion, yeah, it definitely can transcribe calls as well. Now, Teams can do that too. So transcription, I'm not sure how long these tools can actually stay, because pretty much every tool is now transcribing videos too. Even this video, if you would have enabled transcription, would have been transcribed as well. So we now have transcriptions in Teams as well. So I'm really not in, that I mean, so 11 Labs, I've been using it for, voice and or audio narration, and I'm amazed at how the quality of audio that it actually generates. So at times when I'm actually doing my personal blogs or, personal videos, I definitely use 11 Labs. They do have, some free version of it as well, and it does sound more human than robotic. So yeah. Okay, so what does your content life cycle looks like? And let's look into it. Like, I mean, if you are looking at, you are basically in a discovery phase, you have parameters and stuff. Claude and Notebook LM are like some great tools. I found this to be low risk, and they give better results. If I'm architecting or if I'm basically doing information architecture, I definitely find Claude and Gemini, as great tools there. Again, I don't see a lot of risk because these are very generic. But when I'm actually, drafting information, I really want a lot of, I want that first draft to be as clear as possible, so that I spend less time, regenerating it. And again, I find both, I use both Claude and Cursor for my draft generation. So these are like my recommendations again, and these can actually vary from individual to individual, but I thought I'll actually share my recommendations here. If I'm transforming, from, from one, language to another, or let us say I have a graphic and then I want to convert it into a mermaid to a SVG, or, markdown to data. I mean, pretty much every LLM is able to do this. So I don't have a preference. I mean, I've seen pretty much all of them, do that, because the content is not changing. It's just the pattern. It's just, things that I just want to migrate. QA review, I again, I like Claude for, all this technical stuff, but Copilot also has good integration because there's a lot of code PRs and, all the other stuff that, have to integrate. I mean, have to, also look into while I'm doing some QA stuff as well. At publishing, I basically stop. I don't use, any of the agents. I don't recommend that, because whatever I do, all of this is great. It definitely saves 50% of my bandwidth. It basically gives 50% of my time back. But I really don't want to basically, be hasty and then take that step, and then just go ahead and publish whatever I've got from AI. So that's where I always say it's human only. That's one area where I don't think I would let any AI come into picture any given day. All of this is great, but I definitely want to review the information and maintaining. I mean, of course, I mean, I use. Both Cursor and Claude to basically evaluate as to like if something has changed in the product, and then if the docs are consistent or not. So, I have skills that I have created which basically does that job really well. um, Cursors and Clouds can also take screenshots. They basically can accommodate screenshots. So I have new screenshots. I just pass them on, and then I say, okay, the doc is here. Go and see if something is missing, and of course, it will find some new options and variables, and then that's how I keep, things consistent. There's a ways of automating it. There's a lot of different ways that we can actually do this. And you will definitely, I mean, if you're really interested, we can do sessions on that too. So this is my 5 point pre-published check. And I want to share this. Thanks, Ravi. I really want to share this with you all, pretty much anybody I talk to. It's like I have a golden rule, and that is like whatever you want to do, great. All that assistance using AI tools, awesome. You need to be using them because they are there for our assistance. But I would not let anything go out unless I review it, or unless any human reviews it, right? Because there is definitely a possibility that something is not right there. And I really don't want to take any chances publishing anything. So every AI generated piece, according to me, or at least this is something that I follow, passes through these five things. One is accuracy check. This is important when I'm working on APIs or any technical information. I really want to make sure that they're technically accurate. Completeness, right? I mean, these agents are doing fabulous good job of putting instructions together, but then are those instructions sufficient? Is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that I really don't need or the customer doesn't need? And, the agent has just hallucinated and said, okay, go ahead and add finish step also. But I really don't want it to finish. I want customer to basically hold on. There's something else. There's a note that I really wanted to add, and, Claude missed it. So completeness. Uh, Audience fit. This has been a primary criteria inside my prompt as well. But having said that, many a times I've seen that agents hallucinate, and they hallucinate because you've been using the same interface for doing like 50 different things. Never do that. Once your job is done, close that interface, open a new chat interface. Because the more time you spend on that one interface, one chat window, the more possibilities are that your responses start hallucinating. Once you get your response, you're okay with the response, close the chat window, move on to a new chat window. It will definitely help you save tokens. Two, your responses will be much better. And if you think that you need context, you can always point your chat to the previous chat view or just copy that context and then give it. But never do your conversations in the same chat window for like more than 10 or 20 times. Never do that. Having said that, yeah, when the tone, format, and complexity level is right, most of the times I give it in the form prompt, but I definitely want to do that check. I also want to make sure that AI has picked up all the notes or all the graphics or all the details that I provided, and it did not capture anything from the open world or internet. I definitely don't want that to happen because I do not know what the copyright levels are. I really don't want to be getting into a copywriting situation. So, copyright, infringement situation. So that's again another check. And finally, because this is going out with my name, this document is going out from, my team or my name. I'm accountable for it. No one's going to come back and tell me, did I use AI or not? That's okay. That's something that I've leveraged. But at the end of the day, I have my name on it. And I really, really want to make sure that no one comes back and then tells me that this was technically inaccurate information. You should have verified it. As a technical communicator, I think that's my number one responsibility. Accountability is mostly important. And therefore, these are the 5.3 published check that I always recommend, even if you're using AI or not. Let's put it that way. Well, that is pretty much it. We are almost there at the end. And then tomorrow we will be talking about applied labs. We will turn this theory into practice. So most of it is going to be like some of the samples I put together. We'll be using clouds and cursors and everything. There's, as I mentioned to you, I want like you to do certain things. One is I want you to bring one real content artifact tomorrow. It could be either an API endpoint, release notes update, or a support article. Make it as generic as possible. Don't have your organization level, but get one content artifact. We will select one for our lab or whatever practical that we're gonna do. Also, it will be helpful if you can go and explore about all these details, get a little bit more understanding. And if in case you have any questions, come prepared with those questions. We'll spend at least 5 maybe 10 minutes tomorrow before we start the session to answer your questions. Think we are pretty much at the time now. And so this is it, folks. Case if you have any questions, I'm not sure if Puneet is around, but he said that he will be there. So yeah, in the meantime, any questions?
So, I mean, again, I'm coming to the question that I've asked in the earlier thing because we were talking something on grounding and temperature. So,
Mhm,
grounding, we provide the artifacts,
mm.
facts, so that the answer aligns with it or the response aligns with it. However, in the RAG or retrieval augmented generation, the also whatever we have ingested, that is the artifacts, right? So I
Mhm.
want the difference between grounding and RAG, because RAG is our database or the knowledge base that we ingest all our professional details or content, the source materials. So how does this correlate and work?
Well, RAG is bigger. I mean, RAG is a lot more bigger than we think, right? So let's say, in simple term, right? Let me see if I can actually help you with something here. Um, okay, not definitely not this one. So let's see if I actually have my notebooks here. Um, Okay. Yeah. Okay. So look at this. This is a notebook, LM, and it actually has all these examples that I plan to share during this workshop, right? Now, what would you call this? Is this grounding or rag?
This I would call it as rag.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is rag. It definitely is rag. But when I actually go here, okay, and I have this prompt here, right? What would you do next to this? Right? So what are you
Yeah.
doing here? Right? So basically what you're doing here is you're providing some reference to this prompt. It might
Okay.
actually stay only till up until some point. But this one here is going to stay right here. It's RAG. It's like this is my data collection. Everything
Okay.
that needs to happen from this point only. It won't go beyond this, right? But
Yeah.
here, it can actually go beyond any point. Even if I give a file or a photograph, it still has a liberty to go and then do a couple more different searches as well, right? So a
Yes.
RAG basically restricts your content to a specific collection, period. But grounding gives, it actually reduces hallucination because you're giving certain reference pointers. But that doesn't mean that it is only going to be listening or taking only those pointers into consideration. It will stay closer to that point, but it will definitely go beyond it and might actually give you a little more results, right? So that's a primary difference between grounding and drag. Hope that makes sense. That answers your
Yes.
question.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Aman. This was a really helpful insight of, visually explaining it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Don't mind. Great. So I'm seeing if Puneet is still around. Puneet, you still there?
Yes, Aman, I'm very much here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're done for the day. I think the time was still 7, right? Or it was
Yes.
7:30. Yeah, it was still 7. Yeah. Yeah. So we're pretty much done for the day. And I thought you might have something to share today, or is it
Yes.
tomorrow? Okay.
I know we would like to share today. The only thing is that suddenly my laptop has gone a bit slow. First, let me stop the recording here.
Sure.